So, welcome everyone to an AU Patient Summary FHIR IG call. This is our first one back after the Connectathon that we had a couple of weeks ago. And I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country and that we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we all gather today. For me, that's the lands of the Turrbal and Yagara peoples. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And we acknowledge the first peoples as the first scientists, educators and healers. On the agenda today is a few things. Usual business, which we always do. A Connectathon report back, since this is the first meeting back after the Connectathon, where we went through and had a patient summary track that was joint with AU Core project. And then we're going to go into the use case design decisions. So continuing on that discussion that we were having a fortnight ago in making some calls around those big ticket decisions. We need to make sure we leave at least 10 minutes at the end to go through a few things. One is to confirm or change our meeting time going forwards. Now that daylight savings ends, we need to talk about that. And also an Easter holiday date change. So our next fortnight would fall on Easter Friday. So we need to look at what is the better day to shift that. We've got a couple of polls to put forward for that one. And then go through and talk about what should be on the agenda for our next meeting. So I'll go through usual business first. First up, as always, is approval of minutes. These were sent round for review last week. I'll just navigate to those now. So we've got this here. This was from the hybrid meeting at the Connectathon. So we have attendees listed. We've got the slides and the recording. We've got the discussion and a really good set of minutes there from Jamie, who's provided a lot of detail about the discussion that was had on the day around the use cases, and in particular, what are those big ticket decisions we're going to make today. So that's there. I'm not aware of any outstanding feedback. Does anybody need any more time to review these before we make a motion to approve? All right, I'm not seeing any hands and I'm not hearing anyone. So would someone like to motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
I'm happy to motion, Shelley.
Thanks, Shelley. Would someone like to second that?
Stephen want to second that.
Thanks, Stephen. Are there any other comments or questions while I go to the poll? All right, I'll just launch the poll. So you should now see in front of you the voting poll for approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Please vote affirmative, negative, or abstain, especially if you didn't attend that meeting or haven't had a chance to review yet. And if you're online, you've dialed in and you can't vote or see this, just call out your name and what your vote is, and we'll add that to the tally. All right, so about 70% of people have voted. So I'm just going to count that down now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll share those results now, and I'll double check in the chat for this. Landon, did you want to add your vote, or were you able to use the poll?
Yes, please. +1.
Plus
Or
one for
affirmative.
affirmative?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
So with that vote, that makes affirmative is 13, negative is 0, abstain is 11. The motion carries. Those minutes are approved. I'll just quickly click the share results. All right. And then I'll go to back. Okay, so we had an action coming out of that meeting, which was that one there. Shelley, did you want to speak to that?
Yep, so when I go through the use case design decisions section, you'll see I've updated the mediation description from defines how access to the patient summary is facilitated to actually, I think it's defines how access to the patient summary is initiated, just to reflect on the, the action to access the summary. Thanks,
Shelley. So quick run through of some updates. There's not actually that many. So the PSS, or the project scope statement from HL7AU, was approved. I just thought I'd re-highlight that. We talked about it last meeting, but it had like just been approved then. So that means that our governing group, the FHIR work group, has approved our projected timeframes and what we're intending to do that's come out of that scoping session in December that we've been working through, and we're looking at our use cases. So that's been approved, and we've got the endorsement from those. It's now with the board to endorse that, and I'll provide the update on when the board has endorsed that, or if there's any feedback that we need to look at addressing. The other thing I want to highlight is the AU Patient Summary JIRA specification project is now up and running. And what that means is that we have enabled the ability to provide change requests into, well, through the tooling that we have for all IGs. So if we just look at, I mean, this is AU Core, but it's essentially the same approach. Is at the bottom of every IG, be that the FHIR standard, be that AU Core, you'll see a propose a change button down there. So for any specification feedback, like suggesting changes to cardinality or wording improvements, or any particular suggestions around the addition of guidance, we now have enabled this in JIRA. So if I go there, I would be able to, that'll pop up here. You could click create, and the specification now has this handy AU patient summary where you can log something against that. That's quite critical, of course, because this is used for all FHIR standards in the world. So you do need to select which one. So we've got that loaded now, and it has the profiles that are in our content. If there's interest, we can do a quick run through on how to submit feedback, but I think that HL7 actually has some fairly good guides on this, and I'll just double check. I was looking at this the other day on the HL7 YouTube channel. They have some playlists, and some of those playlists include the guidance, and I'll just see if we have info sessions. They've got things around how to raise JIRAs. So that's a nice little walkthrough with some guidance there that's possible. All right, so that's it for updates. What we need to go through is what happened in the Connectathon, because we had a patient summary joint track with AU Core. And we've got, oh, look, I did not update the slides. Apologies. That's just Heath today who's doing that. And Heath is also going to speak to the agency's breakout sessions, who provided the content and ran a couple of really good breakouts in the Connectathon, but aren't able to speak to those today. So Heath will do that on their behalf. So Heath, did you want to share screen, or do you want me to just, do you want to tell me to just click the button?
Might be better if I share.
All right, I will stop sharing.
Okay, should be able to see mine.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so HL7 Australia Connectathon, it was a joint track with AU Core, and from a patient summary perspective, the goal of the track was to just start to get generating some patient summaries, retrieving them, viewing them, based on the new draft AU Patient Summary IG that had been released only a week prior to the Connectathon. And we had about eight participants, no, seven participants that were actually part of the patient summary, I guess, stream of the track. And so there were mainly producers. So we had Better Software, Best Practice, Health Intersections, Graham, MediRecords, Orion Health from New Zealand, who were actually probably a new timer for coming across to the Australian Connectathons, which was really great that they took the effort to come across, and Tech Intro. And then on the consumer side, Better Software had their EMR product that was connecting to their FHIR aid box. So they were playing both roles in that particular case, and I had, as Intervise, some little utility as well that I was doing, which I'll go into a bit more later on. Okay, so with the use cases associated with these, we were generating patient summaries from local data. So some of these producers, others were actually going out and retrieving AU core data from other servers and composing them themselves. And that was either from a single server, or we did have Orion there that was aggregating from multiple AU core responder servers, which was very interesting. We had obviously a viewer, so that was better connecting to themselves, but they are distinct servers. When we say themselves, it's actually an aid box product, which is independent of them, but they've built some extra functionality over the top to support dollar summary and docref in this particular case. And then, as I said, there's I was playing around with smart health links and QR codes. I was retrieving patient summaries from best practice software and then creating a smart health link to that. And I also started to work with Graham because with his patient summary product client app, and was getting him to, or he was creating the QR code and it was using my viewer to retrieve that. So there were some interesting use cases that we were working through. We also had the 2 breakouts, which I'll go into a little bit more detail. One from the agency around the My Health record, and the other one was about patient summary exchange and other things. So I guess from a challenges perspective, we just need to have some more consumers and viewers at this. So obviously it's early days, but certainly a call out to any vendors that are interested in this space to actually become a consumer or viewer of patient summary bundles. And not to say that we don't want more producers either, but certainly there is a lack of consumers at the moment. So at the next Connectathon, I guess, we want to move from just generating patient summaries to actually starting to look at exchange methods between vendors. So it's good place to start with generation, but now that we've got a few people doing that, we really need to start pushing towards exchange. So that would be good if we can get to that at the next Connectathon. So we did have the agency do a breakout session around the My Health record. I'm open to any other people that want to comment on this, but basically it's a very high level conversation around what the industry wants, I guess, from the My Health record around this. So we talked about all sorts of topics around better customer experience. How do we share that data? What's the authority and responsibility of exchanging that information from a My Health record perspective? Is the My Health record the authority of source? How does it aggregate from multiple places? What's the source of the data that is being aggregated into a patient summary? And do we even start to upload patient summaries themselves, or do we continue to upload CDA documents and have basically their views being transitioned towards patient summaries? So does anyone else want to sort of comment around what they got out of this particular session? That's certainly given that we don't have an agency rep here, that's kind of my reflection on the session.
I'm here, Heath. But
Ricardo.
Yeah, because I wasn't at the session, so I'll try to summarize what I got from the notes, and I'd be happy to take on any questions if anyone's got any. And thanks for summarizing it.
Did I misrepresent, or
no,
did I
no.
represent
Look,
it fairly?
No, I think you're on the money here. Look, that's also what I understand the outcome was.
Great. I'm not hearing any comments, so I'll move on. So the second session was on the second day in the morning, and it was more about starting to. I do see some chat. Is there anything there that needs to be addressed in the chat?
Not directly
Okay.
questions about the breakout, I don't believe.
Okay, not that one anyway. So we started to revisit some of the patient summary exchange conversations or options that we have had at a couple of previous workshops. So I reviewed those once again, because obviously every time we have this conversation, we've got potentially new audience. So we went through some of the options around dollar summary, the use of dollar doc ref, the standard sort of FHIR REST API interactions for the bundle resource, where effectively a patient summary is a document bundle. So that's the resource type of a patient summary. There's also the document reference, which is effectively metadata about a document of some sort. And that has a reference to the document. So doing searches on document reference, looking for a patient summary document bundle. So they're sort of standard FHIR interactions that are available within the various core and downstream implementation guides. So we went through some of those and the pros and cons. We then started having a conversation with the vendors. What are the current implementations out there? And sort of dollar summary and doc ref were the main ones that came back out around that. And there was certainly a suggestion as an outcome of that conversation from Graham in particular that, recommending that we need to pick one. We don't want multiple approaches to this, and around generation in particular. And he was sort of basically saying with his minimal number of parameters, but that's just his sort of suggestion at this stage. And I guess from my perspective, quite pragmatic, that we need to get started somewhere and get some experience with this. I presented basically the options that had been discussed at previous meetings. So we've had a number of mentees. So there was a meeting in Adelaide back in February. And then we did another TDG call, and the same Minty questions around what preferences there were from vendors that were looking to implement patient summaries, in particular around the referral use case, exchanging a patient summary as part of a referral. And there was certainly a strong preference around dollar summary at this point in time, but there was certainly a question, is this actually exchange or is it just generation? And I think that's a very reasonable question to ask. So we've certainly got some work to work through that a little bit further in our TDG sessions here. I then went on and started doing an overview of the existing FHIR, well, HL7 Smart Health Links. It's not necessarily FHIR in general, it's HL7. So this is an extension on some previous work that was done around smart health cards and having those loaded onto people's phones, very much leveraged during COVID times with immunization, etc. So there's a new standard that's been gone out to ballot, and I think those ballot issues are being resolved at the moment, so it will be published as a 1.00 standard in the near future. And so these smart health links enable you to create a QR code from those links and share those links or QR codes, and then basically gives you secure access to FHIR resources. And it's a couple of sort of steps there, but once you've got an application as a smart health link viewer, being able to read those QR codes or links, that they go and retrieve what's called a file manifest, because the link in itself has a URL in it to the manifest, and that's signed. so you can trust it. That manifest can be secured using passcode, or the link can expire and those sorts of things. So they're the security features of it. And the manifest has a list of files in it that can be either static or dynamically created at the time of retrieving the manifest. And then the actual files themselves are encrypted, and they are the key is in the original link itself. So the viewer is able to decrypt those encrypted files. There are a couple of different file types that are supported, including smart health cards themselves. So you're able to now get smart health cards that are bigger than what can be encoded in a QR code, much larger resources, and also what is called smart API access, which are effectively smart app launch token responses, so that you can actually launch into an app that with an access code as part of these links. So they're sort of where they're going with this, but current implementations is mostly this approach that we did in the Connectathon, which was just retrieving a FHIR resource, such as a patient summary, but effectively it could be any kind of FHIR resource. It could be an e-request, service request, it could be a patient, etc. So I think there was a lot of interest in that, and I was certainly very happy at the end of it that I was able to start even interacting with Graham at the end of the day as well. So that's pretty much a summary of that. Any questions on that particular breakout session? No. Okay.
All right, thanks, Heath. If you could just keep sharing for a moment. Not quite yet. And are there any other people, because I see quite a few people online who were also at the Connectathon, who had any insights or anything that they wanted to share about the patient summary exchange in that last Connectathon? All right. Let's pop onto that next slide, Heath. So yeah, please keep sharing. And okay, this slide, this is important. HL7AU has come to us to ask, and by us, I mean it's coming to the technical design group. So it went to AU Core yesterday in that call. It's at this call. It'll be at the e-requesting and firework group tomorrow. But could you all get your phone out and actually answer this kind of now? HL7AU is only having a survey open for just a few days, basically, and they're asking when and where will be the next Connectathon. They've got two different cities and a couple of different dates, and they want to know what is best from the community's perspective. So based on that, they're going to make some arrangements. So we might just sit on this slide for a couple of minutes just to let people actually get there and have a look at it. And make sure they've got the access to the survey. Noting it came up yesterday that, yes, one of the dates is actually the Echo Show holiday in Brisbane. All right. We might move off that now. Heath, if you can stop sharing. And the next item is the use case design decisions. So Shelley, are you happy to share your screen and go forwards with that?
Yep, I'll just share, hopefully. Okay, am I sharing my wrong screen? Nope, you guys can see my...
Can now.
Yep, good-o. just lose the Zoom call, that's all. Yep, so thanks, Danielle. Thanks, Heath. So what we're going to do today, we're just going to build on what we did last time. So what we're going to do is make some design decisions about the key characteristics that we discussed last time that we want our use cases to demonstrate in the FHIR IG. So I'm going to ask you to do a bit of work today. So we're going to kick off with a quick refresher from our last meeting. So the main focus of that was identifying the essential characteristics of use cases for the AU Patient Summary FHIR IG examples. So we weren't looking at hypotheticals. We wanted some real practical implementation ready scenarios that affect how things are working on the ground today. And so driving this discussion, we had some simple but powerful guiding principles. We wanted to prioritize the common 80%, so meaning the use cases that you're either already in play or that are just around the corner. So these are the ones that are going to deliver the most value the soonest. And that means putting aside those complex edge cases. So we're not putting them aside forever, but just for now, so that we can focus our energy on where it really matters most. And this just helps us stay aligned, stay grounded, and keep momentum going as we move forward towards real world implementation. And just also, again, a strong reminder that these examples, they're just examples, they're not mandates. They're just there as a guide to help you to implement in the real world. So just a quick refresher, we reviewed our 3 consumer journeys. Here they are again, just as a quick reminder. We've got our interstate GP visit, emergency hospital attendance, and our referral to specialist and allied health. So again, if you want to have a look at those in more detail, you can find them on the Sparked website, and there's a link to that included in the slides. And so we surfaced a few big ticket concepts that we're going to use to shape the examples in the IG. So the first one of those was the author. So who's creating the summary? Is it a patient? Is it a provider? Is it the system acting as a device? Is it like My Health Record, pulling data from multiple sources? We had a look at mediation. So how's the summary accessed? So this includes the human actor, whether that's the patient or a clinician, and the mechanism. So is it a link? Is it a QR code? Is it an app? We also discussed provision. So how do we make sure that what we provide is actually useful and meaningful to the recipient? We looked at currency and specificity. Are we talking about a real-time summary? Are we talking about the most recent information or something that's fixed to a point in time? And we also had a bit of a discussion around attestation and signatures. So what level of verification is expected when accessing or sharing a summary, especially from a medico-legal standpoint? And then we also voted on other access. So whether or not non-primary actors like systems doing secondary analysis should be in scope. And we had a vote on that, whether we remove it from R1, and that actually passed with 7 in favour, 4 against and 4 abstaining. So we did capture the feedback around that for further consideration, but at this stage it's been ruled as out of scope. So thanks everyone for their input. Danielle, did you have anything you wanted to add about the last meeting before I move on?
No, I think
okay.
that's clear.
Yeah. Okay. So here's where we're at today. So today what we want to do is really refine and confirm which of those big ticket characteristics we want each use case to demonstrate. So first up, we're going to have a live Menti session to get a bit of a sense of which characteristics matter the most to you, the implementers and designers in the room. And this is going to help us prioritize what people actually want to see demonstrated. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take those results and then we're going to map those selected characteristics to each of the key steps in our use cases using a bit of a decision matrix. And so this will help us to visualize where they fit and how to make sense of it in a real world workflow. And then finally, we're going to open up the floor to the group to help make some decisions around which characteristics are going to get applied where. So that what we have in the IG, that ends up in the IG, it's feasible, it's meaningful, and it's genuinely reflective of the kinds of interoperability that we're aiming for. That's if we get time. It's a very ambitious schedule, so we'll see what we can accomplish, but we'll see how we go. So this is just an example. After we identify and prioritize the characteristics, the next step is going to be mapping those to the specific steps in the consumer journey. So this is an example to just show you what that looks like in action. This is step 2 of the interstate GP visit use case where Jeremy's getting ready to go on holidays in Queensland. he's just had a recent hospital admission before travelling, so he checks that his patient summary has been updated by his usual GP. So on the left here, we've got some of the predefined decisions. So for this step, we already know that the author is going to be a provider and that mediation's not relevant for this step. So on the right, we've got the decisions that we still need to make. So for example, should the summary be curated directly by the provider or drawn from a system? And what type of attestation and verification is appropriate here? You know, how is the patient summary actually provided? Is it through My Health Record or an app, or is there another method? So after we run the Menti and see which characteristics people are most interested in, we're going to go through each step like this and then decide what fits best. You know, keeping in mind what's realistic, what's useful, and also aligned to the AU Patient Summary R1 scope. And this is just another example. So this time we're looking at the referral to specialist and allied health use case. So in this example, the Dr. Burrows is creating an electronic referral for Joyce, who's recently been diagnosed with gestational diabetes, and he's referring her to both an endocrinologist and a dietitian for ongoing care and support. So just like before, you'll see we've got some predefined decisions that are already locked in for this step. So in this case, we know it's a provider authored summary and that it's mediated by a human actor. So that's our starting point. But we still need to make some decisions, and this is where we need you guys to come in. You know, is this going to be a direct authoring scenario where the summary is written specifically for the referral, or is it curated from information that's already in our source system, or is it even pulled together from multiple systems? Then there's also questions around how that summary gets shared. Is it a link? Is it an attachment? Is it something else entirely? And then finally, you know, what level of currency is most appropriate here? Should it be the latest data available? Should it be a specific summary at the point in time? Or is it the most recent one? So again, this is going to be an example of how we use that decision matrix to walk through each step and determine which are the most appropriate characteristics based on what people are actually doing now. Okay, so now it's going to go over to you guys. So this is your chance to have your say on what you'd like to see in the implementation guide. So we're going to use Menti, and what we're going to ask is, you know, which characteristics do you want to see in the use cases? And we want you to consider this with a practical lens. So think about, you know, what are you implementing now? What are you going to be implementing soon? And what do you think is going to provide the greatest value to other implementers in the short to medium term? So you can join by scanning the QR code, or you can go to menti.com and use the code on the screen there. So that's 75790631. And then once you're in, we're going to walk through those key characteristics one by one, and you can have your input on those at each step. So I'll just give you a few minutes before we switch over to the Menti, or a few seconds, just to scan that QR code.
I've also popped the link and the code in the chat as well.
Thanks, Danielle. All right, so we might, if everyone's happy, I'm going to pop over to the Menti. Just sing out if you need me to bring that QR code back again. All right, everyone's happy, that everyone looks like they're in. Okay, so again, just a reminder, we want to think about, you know, what are you implementing now, what's coming soon, and what we think is going to provide the greatest value in short to medium term. So just keep our lens on that focus. We might move over to the first question. So if we think about our patient summary author, so who's looking for a use case that shows the following? Who's looking for a patient authored patient summary, provider author, device, other? Is there something on here we don't have? And if you do say other, we are going to ask you to elaborate on that. Or maybe you
yeah, and for those online who haven't implemented yet and who don't currently have any specific plans to do so, we've got that option there that you can say that, you know, when we're not yet implementing.
Give you a few more minutes. Okay, things seem to be slowing down. I might count it down. I'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We'll move over to the next question. So if you did select provider author, who's looking for a use case that shows the following? Are you looking for a direct author? Are you looking to curate from the source system by pre-populated? Or are you looking to curate machine aggregation from multiple sources? Or is there one there that we haven't listed? Seems to be slowing down a little bit. So I'll just count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, we'll go on to the next question. So if you did select device author, what use case are you looking for that? So you're looking for a machine generated from a single source or machine generated aggregating across multiple systems? If there's something outside these options, go ahead and select other, and we can ask you about that. Okay. Just count down from that one. Things are slowing down. So we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We'll go to the next question. Oh, one got in at last minute. Okay, so the mediation mechanism. So who's looking for a use case that shows a patient mediated, provider mediated? Do you see a need for demonstrating both? So select all that apply based on what you're currently implementing or planning to support.
Sorry, just remind me again what the mediating means. Is that the person that's carrying this?
Yeah, so the person initiating it.
Initiating
my
what? The creation of
understanding,
it or the retrieval
No,
of it?
access.
Access. Yeah.
Retrieval.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And so now let's talk about how that mediation happens. So how we're going to actually share that access. Are we going to do that through a link, QR code? Is it going to be an attachment included in a referral? Is it going to be a discovery with minimal information? So maybe we've just got the patient demographics. Oh, that's interesting.
Personally, I'm excited that there's like 20 people
Yeah.
who are implementing Patient Summary. That's
Great.
amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's count down 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We'll go to the next question. So provision. So who's looking for a use case that shows the following? So My Health Record, downloading an attachment, RESTful API, patient app, patient portal to clinical information system. Maybe there's something there that we haven't listed that you'd like to see.
And just to clarify, if the previous one was mediation mechanism like a link, where's that link going? Is that link going to the My Health Record? Is that link pulling down an attachment? is it actually providing you something into a CIS system? What's happening there?
Right, I'll count it down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We'll go to the next one. Okay, so currency. So how current is our patient summary? Who's looking for a use case that shows always the latest version across the ecosystem? Maybe it's the most recent version within a single system. Do we need a specific historical version that can be referenced as needed? Do we need a combination of both, the latest and historical versions available? Or is there another option that we haven't listed here? Okay, so I might count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll go over to the next question. So attestation and signatures. So who's looking for a use case that shows the following? Do we need no formal attestation required? Provider attests to accuracy at the time of creation. System generated timestamp only. Digital signature from authoritative source. Patient attestation before sharing. Or is there another option that we've missed?
This will be particularly relevant for device authors. So for those people who said that they're looking for a use case that does device author, please consider how that works in this case.
So just curious, how would a provider attest to accuracy?
If it's direct authored or if it's curation, attestation as part of the medico-legal prompt in the system could be captured such that that's what it actually means in terms of the signature.
And then, okay, then again, it ties back to curation again.
It does. So I think some of these only work for certain kinds of authoring scenarios.
And the reason I asked this, Daniel, is I think probably back in November, probably or December in Melbourne when we had discussed, I think curation was not in the top 4 or 5.
I mean, there's still the possibility, like if we look at the way that the My Health Record shared health summaries and those sorts of things are generated, it's more that the system generates it, it's viewed, and then it's uploaded kind of thing. So you could, that's some level of attestation, is that you're happy for this to go up by just viewing it. It's maybe soft, but it's one option.
Because again, this is examples, not mandates, right? When we're, to your point, Sanjeev, you're right. We're not actually trying to drive in a mandated set of conformance requirements about it. What we're trying to seek is, we've heard these things, they've come up. Is this what people are trying to build now, whether or not we can actually get to a state of agreement so that it's actually useful to have an example in there now for the next kind of like 18 months of development, or is that still, too far ahead?
Okay.
All right, so I think everyone's is finished with that one. We'll move on to the next one. Okay, so this is the last question. So before we wrap up the Menti, here's your chance to add anything we haven't covered yet. So are there any other characteristics, big or small, that you think would be important to demonstrate in the IG that we haven't listed so far? So maybe if there's something specific to your organization's workflow, user experience consideration, yeah, feel free to add that in here and we can review all of these and consider how we can incorporate those into future iterations, or we can flag them for further discussion. So far, it looks like everyone's perfectly happy, or I've set up the Menti wrong and no one can enter anything.
You can't enter something very descriptive. There's a bit of a word limit or letter limit.
Well, maybe it's better to talk about it. If there's a few people who want to raise their hand and talk about that, if this is a bit limiting.
I'm about to try and put something in there.
Insurance, they all seem like content rather than in different use cases. Which is interesting, and we can feed that back, I think, to the CFG as a set of consumer journeys that would be interesting to include. Can I ask for the person who put signed bundles, is that for you different to attestation, and how? What is being signed there?
That's me. It's Brett. Yeah, just I think there's a level where it's not attestation, it's more that it's system signed and non-reputable content. So you're able to say that this summary is complete and
it hasn't been manipulated.
It's submitted from a source. Yeah, it hasn't been
Which for you
manipulated,
is
so it's all
different
from one source.
Can I just check though, is that different to when we said attestation and it was device, like system timestamp, etc.? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because I think you want to sign the bundle to make sure it's unaltered. Yeah.
Okay. So it's some declaration that this content is unaltered from the like the last hop, I guess, from the source system.
Yeah, I have to stand up in court and say this was the summary that was received. I want to be able to do that. Yeah.
And you want the patient summary itself to take care of that?
Yes, I want it to be complete summary document. Yeah.
Well, it's more about the exchange mechanism. Probably can't necessarily put it in the document itself. It's got signatures that are usually external to the thing that's being signed.
Tell me how.
There's a couple of other ones that I'd like to dig into besides signed bundles there. I think some of these we need to provide that feedback back to CFG. So aged care transfer, that's a particular kind of consumer journey. And I think we need to provide that back to them for their backlog to work through that. Some of these there's a couple of things that are, I think, probably more around how we implement those in general. And so one there's around flag, there's hidden data. That one's popping up to me in red, so it's very visible. Can someone speak to that one about what you're looking to implement and why you need that? All right. How about we move on to?
I was just gonna say something, Danielle. So that one isn't mine, but I think it's probably something that's also quite relevant for us here at the agency, because if we're going to respect some of the decisions that would have been made by the patient in terms of what information gets displayed, shared, I think there's still probably the need to have a way to flag that certain things aren't being displayed, and that should be a prompt for someone to go and try to figure out what else could be out there. So I'd see a lot of I think relevance for us here at the agency.
In terms of the person who put wearable chip, Can you talk to me about how that's different maybe, or is that like feeding in, or is that consuming anything different to what we've been talking about with device? Okay. We're the person who, or one of the people who talked about deltas or differences, and I think that's also really similar to something there around historical versus now and kind of those things. Are there people on the line who have a need for that in their use case they're looking at implementing, who would like to, I guess, go a bit further in the explanation for us?
It's Charlotte from Dispense Works on Alvin.
Mm-hmm.
We popped in the historical patient summary verse now. So I suppose some of the things that we've been looking at is changes to focusing mainly on medications across different point in times with the patient summary to review any clinical issues. But one of the things that also came up from the previous examples that we were exploring was, is there a point in time that we do need a particular patient summary versus the one that is currently out now? So just exploring that a bit further.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to stop picking things because I've picked out the ones that were really interesting to me. Is there anything in here particular that people added that they want to speak to now about why they're implementing and they'd like us to consider putting in to a use case, kind of like right now? Heath.
I just wanted to actually follow on from that last one around the changes and deltas. It was basically the workshops that I've been in quite strongly from the clinicians in particular. They want to know about differences between what's changed in this patient summary compared to last time I might have seen one. So that was from Adelaide workshop, and even in that breakout session with the My Health Record, I heard it in that session as well. So,
Thanks, Heath. All right, I think what we'll do is, I mean, we'll come back to this, but it looks like the responses have finished for now. So we'll keep working through the next steps for the big ticket items. And then once we've gone through those, we can reflect on some of this. It also provides some of this feedback back to the CFG. Do we have a representative from the CFG online? I think maybe Nairi, you've joined us. Are you happy to take some of this back?
Yep. Hi, Danielle. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. No problem. I can take that back to the CFG.
And I
Okay,
was
that's
just going to
fantastic.
also add, I think aged care transfer is already in the backlog as well for the use cases.
All right, I'll catch up with you offline, Nairi, and just make sure that we can pass some of this back, and we can come back to this group as well when we get through the first kind of big ticket stuff into whether or not some of this is being fed into the backlog, or if we've already got things more for the patient summary backlog of R2 rather than the CFG to work through.
Yep, sure. No problem.
Awesome. Thank you. Back to you, Shelley.
Okay, so thank you everyone. That was fantastic input. So yeah, what you've just given us gives us a really clear picture of the characteristics that matter most to you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put those to work. So we're going to switch back to the slides and then have a look at how these priorities map to the actual steps in our use cases. So I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint. Oh, and hopefully my magic elf Steve has gone in and selected which responses that we wanted. So if we have a look here, these are the key characteristics that the majority of you want to see demonstrated in the implementation guide. So I won't go through each one directly, but we can just have a look there. That's a bit of a summary for us. And then we've also got these ones here. So if we start, we'll go back to the start. We've got, so we had 3 votes for patient authored, and then we had majority of votes for a provider authored. We've got the top answer there was curation from a source system machine generated. So what we can do now is we can have a look. We've just done a what you can see here, it's a high-level decision matrix. So these are all of the things that we can pick from. So along the top here, we've got each of our use cases that are broken down into their key steps. So you can see there we've got interstate GP visit, emergency hospital attendance, and then referral to specialist and allied health. And then down the left-hand side, we've got all of the characteristics that you voted on. So things like who authored the summary, how it was mediated, and things like that. So the color coding here we've got shows you've got green ticks that show where decisions have already been made. The red question marks are decisions that we need to make today or in the near future. And then the little blue icons, they're decisions that are carried forward from a previous step. So we might not get through all of these today, but we can make a start by walking through each of our Menti selections and then asking the group, you know, if you said you wanted patient authored, these are the different steps that we can pick from to show that. So yeah, where does it make sense to demonstrate this characteristic? We could show it here or we could show it here. And also more importantly, where would it not make sense to show? So that's what we can have a look at now. Did you want to add anything to that, Danielle?
No, I think that's a good summary. I
Yeah.
think it's probably good to just be really clear that where the green ticks are where the clinical focus group, when they provided the consumer journey, have kind of provided that as part of what is already determined. And so where we've got kind of the question marks or where we're elaborating on this for the things that we want to understand how to demonstrate examples that will be useful to help implementers implement patient summary over the next 18 months. Then we've got those things where we feed in to make some choices. So we showed that example right back at the beginning. In fact, there were two of them where some of based on what had actually been provided as the consumer journey, some of those steps are actually quite clear. It's the provider that's authored this. It might not have said how, so whether it's traded or direct authored, but some of the steps are quite clear whether or not it's provider authored. For other steps, I think it's totally agnostic to that, and that gives us space here to say, well, if we do want to provide an example that shows device machine generated, here's those steps in the consumer journey that we can select from to go, well, this is the one we want.
Fabulous. Did anyone have any questions, or will we move on and we can start making some of those decisions? Yep. Not hearing anything. So if we go back, we'll go back to, oh, sorry. Someone want to add something? No. Okay, so clearly we want a provider authored off the bat, and we want a curating from source system machine generated. So if we have a look at our matrix here, there are a few different steps where we can do that. So we've obviously got step 2 at the interstate GP visit. We've got step 4 of the emergency hospital attendance, and pretty much all of the steps of the referral to specialist and allied health. So what we might do is we can go and have a look. Just go a bit further along. So what we've done here is we've broken it down and looked at each of the key steps for each of the different use cases. So you can see for the interstate GP visit, it's really only step 2, 4, and 5 that we're concerned with. The other steps in this consumer journey are out of scope for R1, or they might be clearly purely clinical steps. So these are the first 3 that we're focusing on for this use case. So I don't know, Danielle, if you wanted me to go through based on what we've picked, or go through based on the consumer journeys and start making some of those decisions now.
I guess it does make sense to me. If you go back a slide, might be a couple more actually, with the numbers. As you've said, we've got clearly provider authored, and then device authored was really close with generated off single source. So I would think the next step is let's look at those that are provider authored and then those that are device authored. Does that make sense to people to go, we're looking to elaborate the consumer journeys into a set of technical use cases, and we want the technical use cases to demonstrate provider authored and curation from a source system, from a single system, and we want device authored, and in this case it's also off a single system. And then we go through and have a look at which steps in the consumer journeys are able to do these things and select which one we think we actually want to pick and elaborate from further. Does that make sense to people as an approach to go forwards? All right, we've got some thumbs up. Let's go for it.
Yep. Okay, so if we have a look, if we want provider authored, and then we want curating from a source system, there are a few different options we can do that. So we can do it at step 2 of the interstate GP visit. We can do it at step 2 and 4 of the emergency hospital attendance, and pretty much all of the steps from the referral to specialist and allied health. Do you want me to go to those consumer journeys so people can familiarize themselves with what those steps actually are?
Yes,
So
I'll note when we select something, there's many more that are able to be provider authored than device machine generated. So I think we just want to make sure that we don't inhibit a later choice. But let's have a look at what those things are and see if any of these are the ones that we want to select and why.
Yeah.
Because again, they're just examples, right? They're examples, not mandates. What's a useful kind of step for us to hang a set of kind of example decisions off of that'll help someone implement? It's you know, for all that we've got the diagrams and everything, it's kind of as simple as that.
Okay, so I'll start with step 2 of the interstate GP visit, and just bear with me while I skip through our slides to get to that. Okay, so that's this one here. So this one here is where Jeremy's checking that his patient summary has been updated by his usual GP after a recent admission to hospital prior to travelling. So again, this could be his GP curating it from his own source system. So I don't want to be I'm trying to be system agnostic, but maybe he's got best practice, maybe he's got something like that. That's one option. If we have a look, we go to the emergency hospital attendance. And I'm just going to bring up on my other screen so I can see that original decision matrix slide. For this one here, we could look at step 2, so the ambulance transfer. So the ambulance staff are accessing Charlotte's patient summary. So that patient summary could be provider curated from her regular GP. It could be the My Health record. So maybe that one's not as appropriate. Maybe step 4 might be a little bit more appropriate in this instance. So we can go over to step 4. So step 4, it explicitly says that the system retrieves the patient summary from Charlotte's usual GP. So again, perhaps that might be a more appropriate place to show that from a single system. And then we've also got the referral to specialist and allied health. So I'll just skip ahead to that one. And we can pretty much use any of these steps. So yeah, we can do it at referral creation. So Dr. Burrows, it could be coming from Dr. Burrows' system that he's using, his clinical information system. And we could show it. Probably more appropriate for step 1. Then we've also got for this one's a little bit more complicated. So we've got step 4 and step 6 here. So again, step 4 and step 6 could potentially contain 2 patient summaries. So you've got the endocrinologist accessing the patient summary that's embedded in the referral, and then you've got them also confirming the most recent patient summary. So this could potentially have 2 patient summaries. So again, not sure if this is the most relevant step that we want to demonstrate this at. but that's also another consideration. And step 6 is quite similar as well. So if we have a look at step 6, that's the dietitian accessing the patient summary. So they've got the patient summary that's embedded in the referral, and then it's also got them confirming another most recent patient summary, which, you know, the patient's insulin dosage has been updated. So this could potentially also be a second, more recent patient summary. So I guess those are all the different options that we could choose from for that particular step. And I just wanted to maybe open the floor to some discussion about, you know, which parts of those consumer journeys do you think would be most appropriate to show that? Or are there any that you think we don't want to see that at all? Did anyone have any thoughts or comments?
Thanks, Shelley.
Yeah.
I think, could I sort of, taking a look at summarising that, there appear to be a couple of different kinds of steps. Regardless of which journey, there appears to be a step of getting a particular patient summary from their GP. And that, I think, was both in the interstate GP looking at that, and also I think it was in the ambulance transfer, like the emergency hospital admittance. And then we've got these other steps, which are both looking at something specific. So in this case, again, there's something specific associated with the referral. And then there's some kind of most recent idea. Is there a different type that I've missed? Like depending on the journey, that's how I understood were kind of the options of those steps.
I'll confess to being a bit lost of what you're asking.
Me, I'm checking with Shelley if an overall summary of I think there were like a quick run through of 7 different steps. But I think across the 7 different steps, a bunch of them were go get this patient summary from this GP. I think we saw that both in interstate GP, and I think we saw that in referral to specialist and allied health, and maybe the ambulance transfer. So there's still, I think, that kind of step, and it's present in multiple consumer journeys. And I think there were some other steps that are candidates that are this idea of let's get the most recent. And that kind of cropped up in a couple of different steps across a couple of different consumer journeys. And I thought that, and I wanted to check if there was a different kind of step besides those two, like get the specific one, get the most recent.
I think this journey here, step 4, is an interesting one because it has both of those cases. It's getting the one that was part of at the time of the referral as well as most recent. I guess going back to step 2, it's simpler because it's just the one at the time of the referral. And then step 6 is very similar to step 4, except now we're actually retrieving something that perhaps has magically occurred as a result of the endocrinologist consult. So I kind of see a bit of a progression of complexity just within this particular journey. So step 2 is pretty obvious. Step 4 adds that back, that now we're actually wanting to get the most recent. And then step 6, which is looking at, okay, now I've got to get it from perhaps someone else in this ecosystem, not just the GP. I've got to get their information somehow.
Thanks, Heath. Kathleen, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so I think the thing to remember too is sometimes referrals can sit there for some time. So there's definitely a need for the referral and the information in the referral to be available, but there's also a need for a more recent summary if it had changed to be available, because depending on what specialist they're seeing, it could be quite complex and change at any time.
Thanks, Kathleen. Nick?
Completely agree with what Kathleen's just said. I think as well, just if a clinician's going to make a clinical decision based on information contained in the patient summary, even if it's the latest one, they need to be able to save a version of that in their clinical system if they ever get audited. You know, why did you make this decision? Oh, it was in the patient summary. That was a point in time. I made the decision based on the information that was in the record at the time.
Mm-hmm. And I think back with you, Kathleen.
Yeah, Steve, agreeing with you 100%, that is actually a legal requirement. And if there was something to go wrong, they would have to be able to prove what document they were referring to that they base their decisions on.
Mm-hmm. Nairi?
I was just wondering, has the group just defined what they mean by most recent? Like, and I know we haven't discussed authorship or attestation in detail yet, but patients, are we talking about intersections just with healthcare organisations or just with healthcare providers? Or are we talking about, like we said before, with the devices? So their most recent might come from something else.
It might, and I'm going to have a couple of responses to that. Let's again be careful. This is examples, not mandates. We're not actually defining what most recent means as some kind of official thing systems have to adopt.
No.
We will, if we deal with most recent, provide an example if that's what we do. And I think that has to be like sought back with the CFG, in which advice kind of was asked of, do you have a definition for that? No, we're happy to see what comes out of these conversations. So we'll come out with some conversations and an example, but we're definitely, I don't think, that in the position to land on some sort of definitive thing.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Heath?
In the comment that Kathleen just made about the medico-legal requirement of, like in the case of latest or most recent or whatever, certainly if we're thinking about this from a dynamically generated patient summary, there's, as I think it was Steve said, need to be able to store it. Well, if it was actually something that was dynamically generated but stored at the source, we don't necessarily need to store it in the downstream system, but at least be able to, as Kathleen said, know which document and version of that document at the point in time so that we could retrieve it again. So there's some interesting nuances that we can consider in this new brave world of getting data from the source rather than pushing
I'll go to
stuff
Kathleen.
around.
And then we're going to time box this discussion because I feel we're getting into actually trying to solve most recent. And this is, and I think that's a bit more down the line. Kathleen.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you would have to be able to retrieve the exact information again, which means if you've got a dynamic form that changes all the time, I'm not sure whether you're going to save one of these options each iteration. So that's why I sort of agree with Steve that they need to download it and save it into their own record.
Unless you can get exactly that one and back again. And that was my point.
Yeah, it has to be exact.
And, you know, signing like Brett was talking about and all that kind of stuff.
All right, folks, I think we've got maybe 5 more minutes in the use case design decisions discussion. And we're going to obviously hold over a whole bunch of this to next time. And I guess I'd like to take those 5 minutes to talk about next steps. What we can do, and I think would be useful, we're going to make, these slides are already available, but let's put up a page which says what our options are. So now that we've gone, it's going to be really useful to have something that's provider authored. It's going to be really useful to have something that's device authored. There's some things we can choose from and why. Let's, in between this meeting and the next, put out maybe a Confluence page where we can asynchronously maybe sort of vote on that and provide some feedback as to why you think this would be the good step to sort of elaborate through. And then we can come back and discuss that. Heath.
I'm just going to go back when Marvin sort of said he was a bit lost, because I'm a bit lost as well. I'm not actually entirely sure what we're being asked to
what we're trying to do is
produce.
We're trying to demonstrate some technical use cases, and our input for that in the context is consumer journeys. And we have a lot of steps. a large number of steps, and we're not going to elaborate through all of them. So we're looking for selection criteria for what's the most useful to elaborate through parts of some of the consumer journeys we have to provide some additional guidance to people on our patient summary. That's about where we're at. And so the part of the characteristic questions of what would be useful to you is, if you think it would be very useful to have a use case description that's provider authored, then we should as a group work through one or more steps from the consumer journey into an technical use case. Did that help, or did I confuse the issue?
Maybe we need to see something, because
Shelley, can you go back to step, maybe it's 6 or 4 from the referral to allied health and specialist? We can pick this one. So if we said, let's put a use case, let's do a use case example, and let's do this step. Let's say, and let's actually put some example where we've talked about, let's have a sequence diagram, and let's actually describe an example of patient summary in the ecosystem that does this. Then we would go, well, one of these is provider authored and the following things. So what we're doing is kind of picking the parts of the consumer journeys that we would like to work through as this group to elaborate into example use case.
Okay,
which, as you've said,
that clarifies it for me, I think.
So you're looking for one particular step that we're going to flesh out further.
Or more, because remember, we've got a provider author, we've got a device author. Some of these steps are so complex, as you pointed out, Heath, with the I'm going to have a specific thing and I'm going to have most recent. We could actually decide that in this case, the patient summary embedded in their referral to view, we could go, that's clearly provider authored, right? And that confirming most recent patient summary, maybe we think that's actually most recent. And you know what? That's actually device authored. We get that through a link known from that patient right into the My Health record. We can go, that's the use case that we want to provide some examples of how that might work to people. That's what we're trying to go through and have a look at.
Thank you.
So I think we've got the characteristics that people would like to have some guidance using a use case to do. And then we've got all these options of these different consumer journey steps. So I think we'll go away and put together some clarification on what our next step is, which I probably shouldn't have used the word step, is selecting parts of the consumer journey that we want to pick to elaborate on, and put that out for comment to see which are the bits that resonate most with people who are trying to implement to work further on and provide some guidance through those examples. And that we can come back in our next meeting and kind of confirm which ones are the preferred candidates to work through and then go from there. Does that make sense? All right, let's go ahead and do that. So, Shelley, I'm happy to share my screen for next steps. Or I'm happy for you to keep doing that noting. You're going to need to share your screen for some of the mentees.
I don't mind. I can keep going. That's okay. Yep. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll start sharing again.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay.
Next slide, please. Okay, so I did talk about that the next scheduled meeting actually falls on a holiday, so we need to look at what day we'd like to move it to, because I think it's Easter Friday on the 17th of April. Or hang on, it's the 18th, my bad, sorry, not the 17th, it's the 18th that is Easter Friday. So we're going to have a mentee asking what the preferred day to move this call to is. So Shelley, could you go to that now? and asking again for people to use their the QR code or the Menti to pick what their preferred date is. So typically we'd have it on the 18th. So it's either in the week that we would typically have it, so that's the 14, 15, 16, or it's the week after when we would usually have it, which is 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And if one of these dates doesn't work for your state because there's an extra holiday or something else, can you speak up now? Okay, so same week is looking really strong, but just moving it back a couple of days. So at the moment it's Tuesday. $15 people have responded. There's 34 online. We'll just give it a little bit more for people to drag and drop. And if you can't access the Menti for whatever reason, and thanks, Kathleen, we've got that extra vote there in the chat. So you can make use of the chat. All right, let's count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we've got, in terms of ranking, the 15th, and that also includes in the chat, is the preferred day, the Tuesday, over Wednesday or Monday, and clearly we don't want to do it the next week. Can I actually ask, let's actually do a motion. Is someone happy to motion that our next meeting is held on the 15th of April rather than the 18th?
I'm happy to motion, Danielle. Shelley.
Thanks, Shelley. Is anyone happy to second moving the meeting to the 15th of April?
I'm happy, Danielle.
Okay, thanks, Sanjeev. I'm about to pop up a poll to approve that. There's already a poll being shared in this meeting. That doesn't make sense. Let me just do this again. Okay, so there's a motion on the table to move our meeting to the 15th. Please vote for that, either affirmative, negative, or abstain. All right, we've got 70% of people have voted. I'm going to count that down now in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll end that poll. So we've got 20 affirmative, 0 negative, 4 abstain. So the motion passes. We will move this meeting in that week to the 15th rather than the 18th. So I'll send out an invite specifically for that, for our next one. The other thing we need to do that is around this is meeting time. So post daylight savings, we've got some options here. And in fact, I think in the Menti, there's 3 options rather than the 2 that are shown. So going forwards, we can either keep 9 a.m., we can change to 10 a.m., or I think option 3, which was floated by someone, was 11. And have a look at what those time zones are. So we're about to put up a Menti for what it means, but I think before we do that, just have a look at what that is and match that to your time zone on whether you want to keep it at this time or make it later in the day. So Shelley, can you go to the Menti now?
Mm-hmm.
All right, 16 people have voted. We'll just give it a bit more. There's still 33 people online. Folks are still just coming in now. Give people a little bit more to work that through with their own time zone. What does it all mean? Is this the right time for me? Right, we've got 22, which was pretty consistent with our previous responses. So I'll count that down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that highest option there is clearly 10 a.m. with a few, I don't mind, a couple of people early, but also a really close runner at 11 a.m. I think I would like to do the same process of asking someone to make a motion, second, and then vote for our change of time, which will go through until October. So this will be the post-daylight savings period until daylight savings starts again, and we'll reconfirm our time then. So would anyone like to motion that we're changing it to 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time?
Yeah, I'll motion that. It's Steve. Change to 10 a.m.
Thanks, Steve. And would anyone like to second that?
I can second that, Danielle. Joy.
Thanks, Joy. Are there any comments while I go to the poll? All right, I am about to launch the poll. There we go. You should see that in front of you to move our meeting time back, basically an hour. Or I guess, yep. So back an hour. All right, we've got 96% of people have voted. This one was quick off the mark. And we now have 100%. We also have something in the chat. So I'll share those results. And so we have 24 affirmative, 1 negative, 2 abstain. So the motion carries. Does the person who voted negative want to put forward any kind of persuasive argument to the others?
Oh, no, that was just me. I just think it's an early time for people over in WA. I think we kind of don't take them into consideration.
Okay, thanks, Marvin. Okay, so back to the slides, Shelley. We can have a look at our meeting times, I guess, around, we can have a check-in point later on as well, if that's something we want to do in a few months and see what that's like before we go right through to October. Can you go next slide, Shelley? Okay, next meeting. So we picked that was the Tuesday. The current agenda for that, and I'm wrapping up real quick, I know we're over time, is obviously the usual stuff. We'll get back to the use case design decisions, and there'll be an email coming out from us to provide you a Confluence page or a Zoom survey or a something to indicate if any of the particular consumer journey steps are what you think a better fit for you and you would like to see elaborated in the use cases based on the characteristics we decided. Any kind of change requests coming from JIRA, we'll have a look at. And I also am going to talk about patient summary testing and patient summary conformance. They're where we're at now, I think, in our spec project, and provide an update on it. Are there any other items that need to be put on the agenda? Does anyone want to raise something or talk through anything in particular in our next meeting? All right, if you do, and that occurs to you after this meeting, you can either email me or message me or any of the other co-chairs, and we can put that on the agenda for our next meeting. Otherwise, thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for hanging around. We'll see you in Tuesday on the, oh, I don't want to say a date now because it'll be wrong, but the date that we voted on, that's when I'll see you. Thanks, folks.